My wife left me for weeks and admitted to cheating on me for 4 years because she was bored, and now she wants me back. Looking back, my life seemed to follow a predictable path. I was always the dependable one, the planner who took care of things. My wife, Claire, was my high school sweetheart. We built a life together that, on the surface, appeared idyllic. We had a beautiful home, 2 wonderful kids, and a marriage that friends often envied. For years, I believed we were truly happy. Our relationship began in high school, blossoming into a deep and genuine connection. We shared dreams and ambitions, and we supported each other through various challenges: college, early careers, and eventually starting a family. All these milestones were achieved side by side. Claire and I were the quintessential couple, and I never doubted her loyalty or love. But then came the day that shattered my world. Claire left unexpectedly, citing a need for space. It was out of character for her, and I was left bewildered and hurt. When she returned weeks later, she admitted to having had an affair for the past 4 years, claiming she had been bored. Her casual admission felt like a dagger to the heart, unraveling everything I thought I knew about our marriage. Now, she wanted to come back, asking for forgiveness and another chance. The turmoil in my heart was unbearable, and I was left questioning everything about our past and what the future might hold. In the early years of our marriage, everything seemed perfect. Claire and I were the couple everyone admired. We hosted dinner parties, went on vacations, and appeared to have it all together. I prided myself on being a supportive husband, always there for Claire and the kids. Our life was the picture of stability and happiness, or so I thought. But looking back, I can see the cracks that had started to form. Claire's laughter had become less frequent, and she often seemed distracted, lost in her thoughts. I attributed it to the pressures of daily life and raising a family. After all, everyone goes through rough patches, right? I convinced myself that our bond was strong enough to withstand any challenges. It wasn't until she left that I began to see how deep those cracks really were. The signs were there: the late nights at work, the sudden interest in activities that kept her away from home, and the emotional distance that had grown between us. I had been too wrapped up in maintaining our perfect facade to notice the growing void in our relationship. Her departure and subsequent confession brought everything into sharp focus, revealing the underlying issues I had been too blind to see. The first signs of trouble appeared subtly, like dark clouds on the horizon of a seemingly sunny day. Claire started coming home later than usual, citing work as the reason. I didn't think much of it at first. Her job was demanding, and I trusted her implicitly. But then there were the unexplained absences on weekends and the mysterious phone calls she would take in another room. One evening, I planned a surprise date night, hoping to rekindle the spark. Claire seemed pleased but distant, her mind elsewhere throughout dinner. It was as if she was physically present but emotionally absent. I tried to brush off the unease gnawing at me, telling myself it was just a rough patch and that things would get better with time. However, the distance between us only grew. She became increasingly secretive, guarding her phone and avoiding eye contact during conversations. Our once frequent and intimate talks dwindled to strained small talk. Despite my efforts to reach out and understand what was wrong, Claire remained evasive. It felt like I was losing her bit by bit, and the harder I tried to hold on, the further she drifted away. My growing suspicion gnawed at me daily. Claire's behavior had shifted from merely distant to outright evasive. She would frequently make last-minute changes to her schedule, often leaving without a clear explanation. Our home, once filled with laughter and connection, felt cold and empty. I could sense something was deeply wrong, but every attempt to bridge the gap was met with deflection and excuses. One night, after she had gone out yet again without a proper explanation, I decided to follow her. My heart pounded with guilt and anxiety, but I needed to know the truth. As I trailed her car, my mind raced through every possible scenario. When she pulled into the driveway of an unfamiliar house, my worst fears started to crystallize. I watched from a distance as she greeted a man with a familiarity that twisted my gut. I confronted her the next morning, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. She denied everything, calling me paranoid and overly controlling. Her vehement denial only fueled my suspicion further. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and no amount of reassurance could uproot them. I began to check her phone and email whenever I could, looking for any hint of infidelity. Each time, I was met with nothing concrete, just a growing sense of unease and betrayal. Before continuing the story, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. The turning point came on a cold winter evening. Claire had been gone for hours without a word, and I could no longer bear the torment of uncertainty. Desperation drove me to check her computer, hoping to find some answers. As I scoured through her emails and messages, my heart sank. There it was, undeniable proof of her affair. A string of messages exchanged with a man named Mark. The conversations were intimate and spanned back for years, detailing clandestine meetings and confessions of love. When Claire returned that night, I confronted her with the evidence. Her face went pale, and for a moment, she seemed speechless. Then, as if a dam had broken, she confessed. She admitted to the affair, explaining that it had started 4 years ago. She spoke of feeling bored and unfulfilled, seeking excitement outside our marriage. Her words felt like knives, each one cutting deeper into the fabric of our shared life. I was lost, she said, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know how to tell you I was unhappy, but I never stopped loving you. Her confession left me reeling. The woman I thought I knew so well had been living a double life, and her betrayal shattered the foundation of trust we had built over the years. Anger, hurt, and confusion overwhelmed me. Claire's plea for forgiveness seemed hollow in the face of the years of deceit. I couldn't understand how she could justify her actions, and the revelation left me questioning everything about our relationship. The discovery of Claire's infidelity was devastating. The next few days passed in a haze of disbelief and anger. I replayed her confession over and over in my mind, each time feeling the sting of betrayal anew. It wasn't just the affair itself that hurt. It was the years of lies, the deceit that had woven itself into the fabric of our marriage. Determined to understand the full extent of her betrayal, I delved deeper into her messages and emails. What I found was a chronicle of her affair with Mark, filled with details of their secret meetings and intimate moments. It became clear that their relationship had not just been a fleeting distraction, but a significant part of her life. She had managed to compartmentalize her affair, keeping it hidden from me while presenting a facade of marital bliss. The most painful realization was how calculated her actions had been. She had continued the affair for 4 years, all the while maintaining our life together. There were moments, like family vacations and anniversaries, where she had been with me physically but had been emotionally invested elsewhere. Each revelation felt like a fresh wound, deepening the sense of betrayal. One particular message stood out, a recent one where she expressed doubts about ending things with Mark now that she was back. It was a stark reminder that even after her confession, there were still parts of her that were not fully committed to our marriage. The emotional impact was crushing, leaving me questioning not only our past but the possibility of any future together. Unveiling the full truth of Claire's affair was like piecing together a painful puzzle. Each new revelation added another layer of betrayal and hurt. Determined to confront her with the evidence and understand her motives, I gathered everything I had found, messages, emails, and photos, into a single, damning folder. It was time to face the reality of our situation head-on. When I presented Claire with the folder, her reaction was a mix of shame and desperation. She tried to justify her actions, claiming that the affair had started out of boredom but had become something she felt trapped in. She insisted that her love for me had never waned, but her words rang hollow in the face of the overwhelming evidence. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, her voice cracking. "I was lost and confused, and Mark was there when I needed someone. But I want to make things right. I want us to rebuild what we had." Her plea for forgiveness and reconciliation was difficult to process. I could see the guilt and remorse in her eyes, but the trust that had been shattered felt irreparable. I needed time to think, to sort through my own emotions, and to decide what was best for my own well-being. The more I reflected, the more I realized that forgiveness and reconciliation might not be possible, not when the wounds were so deep and the betrayal so profound. The evidence I had uncovered painted a clear picture of her deceit, and it was impossible to ignore the emotional toll it had taken on me. I began to see that moving forward might mean letting go of the past and starting anew, even if it meant leaving behind the life we had built together. When Claire asked to come back, it felt like a twisted irony. She wanted another chance to prove her love and commitment, to mend the rift she had caused. I agreed to meet her, hoping to find some clarity amidst the chaos of emotions swirling inside me. We met at a quiet cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of our shared home bearing down on us. Claire was visibly nervous, her eyes pleading as she spoke. "I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even imagine," she began, "but I want to make things right. I want us to be a family again." Her words, though sincere, felt like salt in a wound. I had spent weeks grappling with the betrayal, the lies, and the sheer audacity of her affair. The idea of simply moving past it seemed impossible. "How do I know you won't get bored again?" I asked, my voice betraying the pain I still felt. "How can I trust you after everything?" She didn't have an easy answer. Instead, she broke down, admitting her faults and expressing her regret. "I was selfish, and I took you for granted. I see that now. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I hope you can find it in your heart to give me a chance to prove I've changed." The emotional turmoil was overwhelming. On one hand, there was the history we shared, the life we had built together. On the other, there was the undeniable fact that she had betrayed my trust in the most profound way. I knew I needed more than just words. I needed time to heal and to figure out if I could ever truly forgive her. The confrontation left me more uncertain than ever, but one thing was clear. Moving forward would require a level of honesty and commitment that we had never had before. The impact of Claire's affair rippled through every aspect of our lives. Our children sensed the tension, their innocent questions piercing my heart. I tried to shield them from the worst of it, maintaining a semblance of normalcy while inside. I was grappling with a storm of emotions. Friends and family, who had always seen us as the perfect couple, were shocked when the truth came out. Their sympathy was comforting, but it also brought a sense of shame and embarrassment that was hard to shake. My relationship with Claire was strained, to say the least. Even though she was back, living under the same roof felt like cohabiting with a stranger. Every conversation was fraught with unspoken pain, every shared meal a reminder of the betrayal. Our interactions were polite but distant, a stark contrast to the warmth and intimacy we once shared. Professionally, I found it hard to concentrate. The betrayal consumed my thoughts, making it difficult to focus on work. I started to avoid social gatherings, embarrassed by the whispers and pitying looks from colleagues who knew what had happened. The emotional toll was immense, and I began to question my own worth and judgment. Despite everything, I knew I had to find a way to move forward. I sought counseling, hoping to make sense of my emotions and decide on the next steps. The therapist helped me see that while the pain was real and valid, I also had the power to choose how I would respond to it. It was up to me to decide whether to try and rebuild with Claire or to move on without her. This journey of introspection was challenging, but it was also necessary for my healing and growth. Throughout this period, I leaned heavily on the support of close friends and family. Their unwavering presence reminded me that I was not alone in this struggle. It was a small comfort in the midst of the chaos, but it was enough to keep me going as I navigated the aftermath of Claire's betrayal. As the months passed, I found a way to move forward, albeit with a cautious heart. Rebuilding trust with Claire proved to be an arduous process. We embarked on couples therapy, and while progress was slow, it allowed us to address the underlying issues that had contributed to the affair. Claire's remorse seemed genuine, but rebuilding our relationship was not as simple as flipping a switch. We had to work hard to restore the broken trust and redefine our marriage. In the midst of this, I began to rediscover myself. I reconnected with friends, pursued personal interests, and focused on my own well-being. This period of self-reflection was both painful and liberating. I learned to set boundaries and prioritize my own emotional health. It became clear that while forgiveness was possible, it did not mean forgetting or tolerating disrespect. I learned to value my own worth and not let the past dictate my future. For those navigating similar situations, my advice is to take the time you need to heal and decide what is best for you. Don't rush into forgiveness or reconciliation out of a sense of obligation or hope for the past. Focus on self-care. Seek support from trusted friends or counselors, and remember that your worth is not defined by someone else's actions. Moving forward may mean rebuilding with the person who hurt you, but it could also mean finding a new path for yourself. Trust and healing take time, and it's important to honor your journey as you navigate through it.